Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking to Ben Heath. Ben, it's great to connect with you, CEO of Heath Media. I love talking about this subject, the most sought after digital advertising agency in the UK. All right, so let's talk about this. You're heavily in the space. I want to talk about how to grow in YouTube channels, how to grow in the space. I think people a lot of times they don't know what to do, and so sometimes they do nothing. So a couple of things I see when it comes to marketing. They don't know what to do and they're frozen, so they do nothing. They feel volatility in the market, so they pull back when they should really be doubling down. And I find that a lot of times most people's message isn't clear and they haven't kind of changed to the rhythm of where the market is. And I think the way where the market is simpler is better, less is more, messaging and clarity. And so I want to kind of talk about all of that. So let's start off by talking to just kind of the lowest common denominator, the person, the group, the company, and I see this in all size companies, who doesn't know what to do, so they do nothing. What are those initial steps to kind of wake them up? I hear it all the time. I'm a business coach. I work with solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies, everything in between. And there's so many people I talk to who just say, I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to get started. So let's get them started a little bit. What do we got to do?
So the first thing is they probably do know what to do. They're just afraid to do it. Yeah. So that would be the first thing I'd say around that. It's like, if someone says that, you sort of say, okay, gun to your head. What are you going to do? How are you going to get leads? How are you going to get sales? And they're probably going to say something like, oh, well, I could run like ads, or I could do such and such and that sort of thing. So that's like the very first thing. The next thing would be take a look at businesses that are similar to yours, that are where you want to be, not necessarily in 20 years' time, but like 3-5 years' time. What are they doing? It's relatively straightforward to work out what they are doing to acquire customers. All the online ad platforms have like library type options where you can literally see the ads they're running. These are brought in for transparency reasons and privacy related issues, but they're great market research tools. So that would be one place to look. Are they ranking highly in SEO? Are they running meta ads? Are they running Google ads? Do they have organic followings? Have they got a YouTube channel, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah. And an afternoon of research can tell you a lot. And then from there, if you take a look at the competitors that are where you want to be and you see what they're doing, you think, well, can we replicate that? Sometimes the answer would be no, but sometimes it would be yes. Yeah, we could do that. We could find a company to do that for us, or we could do that. And then you go from there. Because I think,
well, hold on. So let's fill in the blanks of go from there. So you do that. Now reverse engineer. So that's the science of it. Now let's reverse engineer to the step one of the art of it. Because now it's all about who does that and then actually executes. And so what do they start with? And I'm a big fan of digital agencies because there's a level of guidance and accountability that people need. So because companies like yourself will share with people, here's your step one, here's your step two, here's the theory, like you just talked about, here's the science, reverse engineer, here's step one of the art side of it, here's your step two, and then we can kind of guide you. So just kind of walk them to their first step of actual execution.
I think I never really thought about it in the beginning with an artistic lens. That's probably not my personality type. I am more naturally scientific, data-driven. And that sort of allowed me to create art when I started creating content without thinking of that way. And what I did was I would take a look so I'd identify what I thought was going to work well.
Yeah.
So when I first started making content, for example, I could see that the people that were where I wanted to be in the marketing space, they all had personal brands. They seemed to be primarily focused on YouTube from an organic content standpoint. So that was my starting point. Right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then in terms of how did I make that work? How did I create the art? I would check out, let's say I wanted to make a video on a topic. I would check out the top 5 or 10 videos on that specific topic within my industry. I would watch the top ones. I would take a look at them all and say, this one did this really well. This one did this really well. These guys did this badly. No one's mentioned this for some reason. And then I would just try and make sort of my own take on a mixture of the best performing elements. So I'd be like, right, I'm going to take this from this part, put my own spin on it a little bit. And that was how I made my art. And I think if I'd have been tasked with coming up with something fully creative off the bat, I would have really struggled with that.
Yeah.
But doing it that way, breaking it down was very helpful for me. So if someone's in that situation, that would be a way I'd recommend going about it, doing it themselves. You absolutely can speed up that process or take a different approach and just hire someone to do it for you.
Yeah.
Options. Most of them are rubbish because the barrier to entry when it comes to creating a marketing agency is almost zero. You need a phone and a laptop. Maybe not even a laptop now. Maybe you can just do it all on a phone.
Yeah.
So I think that puts a lot of people off. A lot of people start working with an agency, get their fingers burned, think, oh, these are all rubbish, and they don't do that. But, I'd say that you'd never do that with a restaurant, right? You'd never go out for dinner, it'd be terrible food, and think, I'm never eating out again.
Yeah.
Of course, go, that restaurant's terrible, I'm not eating there again, but there'll be some other options that are great.
Yeah.
So same with marketing agencies. Although the poor restaurants don't survive very long at all, poor marketing agencies can kind of tick along because there's not the cost base. So the ratio is definitely skewed more towards poor agencies as opposed to good ones. But you can find good ones. You can look at case studies. You can look at examples of previous work. The marketing space is very visual. So in terms of doing your due diligence and working out who's good, who's not, that's something with a bit of research you can most likely work out before you engage someone and just ask for proof. And that can be a good way to go. And I think which way you go is going to depend on your budget. If you can afford it, definitely go with an agency. They're going to save you years of trial and error, speed up everything. If you can't, you have to do it yourself. And then modeling from others should give you the starting point to then be able to take that first step forward.
Well said. Let's talk about budget. Let's talk about investment. Let's talk about Google ads, Facebook ads, what the strategy is behind that. Kind of simplify that for people. I think some of the things that I hear a lot are, how do you do it? When do you do it? And how long do you do it for?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we think of, let's say, Meta ads and Google ads. So these are the 2 largest online advertising platforms by far. If you're a small business owner, medium-sized business, you could probably get all the ad exposure that you'd ever need from Google ads, Meta ads, right? They are quite different, although there are similarities. The main difference with Google ads being the intent side of things. So if someone's searching for something on Google, they see an ad pop up, and that's going to be relevant to what they're searching for. Therefore, they have intent around actually going ahead and finding out about a service, looking into a product, something like that. Meta is all interruption advertising, although of course a lot of Meta is also, a lot of Google is also interruption advertising, because on the Google ad network there's also display ads and YouTube ads, and these are interruption advertising. So those are the 2 platforms. In trying to work out which one to start with, I would come back to that previous point of, well, let's take a look at what your competitors are doing. You can find that out. And then from there, how do you start? How long to run for? I'll answer the how long to run for part first. So a lot of people approach this as thinking, I need to run this for a certain period of time, and then I'm all good. And then it's, I don't need to worry about advertising anymore. That's not really the objective, because if your ads can be nicely profitable, why would you ever want to turn them off?
Yeah.
So the objective is not to run them for a while, reach a point, and then not bother. The objective is to make them as successful as possible so that you can spend as much as possible, but you're getting that and then some back, and your business is growing and scaling. So that would be the first thing. Think of this as I'm going to advertise forever. I'm just going to get it working well enough where that's the right decision for my business. What to get started with, if you're doing it yourself, typical advice would be something like $10 a day, would be like the absolute minimum. less than that, just don't bother. The correct minimum for each individual business is going to be more closely related to your business circumstances. So what I typically advise is you want a budget that is large enough that it would sting a little if you lose it, but not so large that it would hurt you or your business financially. And there's normally a sweet spot there where you're like, I could afford to lose this, but I really don't want to. And that's normally the sweet spot. Because if you go too low, you're probably just going to turn the ad campaigns on, never think about it again. That's not good. If you go too high, if it doesn't work out initially, which is of course possible, then you can end up in a sticky situation, which you want to avoid. Well, so that's what I'd normally recommend on the budget side of things and how long for. And then in terms of getting started,
I just want to comment on that for 1 second,
sure.
Because I think a lot of times people aren't thinking about, what is a client worth and what is the lifetime value of a client?
Yeah.
So, it seems in community that when you really understand what that is, then you can make different decisions on the dollar spend. And so if I think it's pretty simply put, thinking about the lifetime value of a client is, I think, really, really important. It's something that a lot of people overlook or aren't thinking about it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
100%. So I'll give you a really good example. Starbucks, their average order value. So someone goes in once to Starbucks and they spend just under $6 on average. Order coffee, maybe a bit of food. Some people don't, some people don't. But the lifetime value of a Starbucks customer is $14,000, just over $14,000. So if you're plugging those numbers into your marketing and thinking, well, what can we afford to get a $6 sale in terms of advertising costs? A couple of dollars maybe. And that is just not going to work. You are not going to be able to acquire customers at scale if you can only afford to spend $2 per new customer acquired. But you could spend easily 100 times that if you know your customers are going to be worth $14,000 each, and it still be really profitable and acquire all the customers you could ever want, because that's a really healthy budget. So Starbucks is an extreme example, but it's a business that's so good at turning one purchase into multiple purchases. And the businesses in just about every vertical that really win with paid ads are not necessarily the best advertisers. They're often the ones that make the most money from their customers, because those are the ones that can then afford to spend the most to acquire customers. So that's such an important point. I've worked with so many people where they might be really fighting hard to get their cost per purchase, let's say, with meta ads down from $25 to $20. And they've been working at it for a couple of years. They're really trying everything they can, and they're sort of stuck at this point. And often you say, right, your average customer lifetime value is currently $100. Why don't we just increase that to $150? That's way easier than decreasing your cost per purchase on an already optimized campaign where you've done on the ad side of things from 25 to 20. Way easier. And you look at those two different numbers, the increase in LTV from 100 to 150 is massive. That's way more beneficial to your business than the reduction in cost. I think partly it's because it takes a while for you to see the LTV, whereas you can see the cost of the customer acquired. You can see the CAC immediately. It's right there in the ad account. Super, super obvious. But that is nearly always the better approach. And that's the only way as well to really, if you are going to be running ads on Meta, you are going to be running ads on Google, these platforms are going to get more expensive over time. They have been since I started running ads 16 years ago, and they're going to keep going that way. The only way to properly insulate yourself from that is to go, doesn't even matter. Double ad costs. I don't care. We make so much per customer over the lifetime that it's still really profitable for us.
Yeah, I think it's great. All right, you were going to say you had one more point. I don't know if you remember.
What were the three parts of the question? It was how long to run ads for, how much
I can't remember.
It was responding to the third part.
I can't remember. I asked you when it's on my head, and then we got somewhere else. So let's just talk more about paid media. So I think a lot of times companies think about when is the right time to actually begin paid media. There's the idea of doing something that can be promoted by not only the company, but the ambassadors of the company, influencers, just the normal followers that the company has, and then later on at some point, and the question for me is when to add in, I think, the paid media piece.
So in order for any business to succeed, it needs reliable ways to acquire customers over time and at least a reasonable scale. So it could well be that a business is able to do that without any paid media, in which case, technically, there would be no need to add any paid media in. I think in most businesses that fit that scenario, let's say they generate loads of business through cold calling or cold email or outreach of some sort. Even those businesses in those scenarios, you could benefit from some remarketing, which would cost virtually nothing, put ads in front of people that have already interacted with you and sort of hoover up the low-hanging fruit. But a lot of businesses that are wondering, they don't have a consistent, reliable way of generating customers. And I think that paid ad platforms are a good way of doing that. They're not the only way of doing that. Like I said, you can have cold outreach methods. You could have organic content, which you're not going to pay for. But I don't see there being necessary building blocks to have in place before you go, now we're ready to start running paid ads. Like you don't need a following to do that. You don't need other things in place to do that. I could start a business tomorrow and start running paid ads for it to cold audiences. Having other things in place helps. So having reviews and testimonials or an organic following that we can retarget, great. But that's not a requirement. Someone can jump into that with a brand new business.
All right, good. Tell me the biggest obstacles that you see, when people come to you. We've talked about a few. I shared what I see as a business coach. What are some of the things that people come to you with that you talk about, raises their awareness so they understand what the path looks like?
So they often think the problem is not what the problem is. So we'll have lots of conversations with people saying, oh, we just feel like we're not reaching the right audiences. And that's just not really a thing anymore. Like these platforms are smart enough. They will find your people, definitely.
Yeah.
What people really struggle with is normally on the creative side of advertising, particularly if we're talking about Meta or the interruption side of Google Ads, which is the majority of it. They're just playing it safe and boring when it comes to their ads. And the ads themselves are the part that people see. Yes, there's the whole campaign setup, there's all the thing behind, but that's the thing that's either going to grab attention or not. That's the thing that's going to convince them to convert or not. And if that thing is dull, it's not going to work. So I'm often encouraging people to just be willing to be a little bit more out there and do something a little bit different. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to flop. It's not going to work at all, the more out there thing. But 1 in 10, or different ratios depending on how good at this you are, but a minority of the time you will get an ad that works so well and performs so much better than the boring average stuff that everyone's putting out. But it could completely change your ad campaign, completely change your business, and change the business owner's life. Like I've seen that happen so many times where they just put that one ad together and it's like, wow, this halved our cost to acquire a customer. We can now spend 5 times as much profitably on ads and grow 3 times as fast as we were previously.
Yeah. Don't be bold, be boring, play to win, don't play not to lose. It's, and I think in the way the world is today, if you're 1 step ahead, a little bit of real time today, and you're thinking like that and you're strategically moving, I see it happen in companies all the time where they're a little bit ahead, and they can move in that way. It really makes a big difference. So I have a question. You're in the Cotswolds, you're in the UK. I'm here in Detroit, Michigan. What's the same, and what's different? When you look around the world, what's the same, what's different?
Yeah, so more than half our clients are in the US, so I've got a lot of experience dealing with clients both sides of the pond. So business attitudes are very different. We see for our clients, I'll start with that. American clients are far more likely to work with an agency like mine with a smaller business. They're more willing to take that risk early on. We sometimes get really quite small businesses work with us from the US who are more up for it, more ambitious, more gung-ho. Whereas in the UK, they tend to be larger and be more established before they're willing to take that leap. On the flip side, a UK-based client is more likely to stick with us for longer. So they take longer to get in the first place, but more likely to give us more time. Whereas the American ones more likely to be the opposite. They're going to get in easier, but also move on and change their mind or decide on a different marketing course of action or something along those lines. From like an advertiser standpoint, when we're putting campaigns together, there are differences, but they're going to be market specific. Yeah. It's difficult to say across the board what you're going to see, in the US versus say the rest of the world. A lot of businesses we work with will advertise in like the classic, big five English speaking countries, UK, US, Australia, Canada, etc. And that will be, and we will start with typically the same ads, the same messaging in all markets. And then over time through split testing, see, okay, there's a bit of nuance here that this performs a bit better in Australia and this performs a bit better in Canada and things like that. But I think within that world, there's not a huge amount of difference. Now, if you want to go beyond that, things start to get very different. Like if a US-based company is like, right, we're going to start running ads in Indonesia, well, you need to be prepared that they're probably not going to check out through a website. They're going to want to start the process through WhatsApp. It's going to be cash on delivery for a completely different setup there. Yeah. But not that many US-based companies are advertising in places that aren't somewhat similar to the US.
You're talking about, it's harder to get local clients sometimes, but they stay longer, and the states hire you. There's an old saying. You know what the definition of an expert is, Ben?
Go for it. Tell me.
Somebody who lives more than 50 miles away. There's something about.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing is great. I think this whole topic is one that I think companies really need to wrap their arms around. My last question before we go into a speed round is, how has your business been affected by, and how do you then work with your clients a little bit differently since AI has been in the game so significantly and continues to evolve at a very, very fast pace? I mean, the IQ of AI is getting smarter and smarter and smarter by the day. So how has that affected your business, and how has that affected the way you work with clients?
Yeah, so AI in my space has been great. I'd say that the number one thing that we've seen so far is just efficiencies. Yeah. So it's much faster to write ad copy now, come up with ad copy variations, image editing is quicker, video editing is faster. So we're able to produce more as opposed to anything else. The AI tools that are available for marketing, paid ads, they're definitely not in a place where they can replace people. There's loads of AI built into these platforms. So you will have AI image generation or AI text variation, and some of it's great and some of it's terrible. Yeah. And you need a person to be the filter. So that's really what we've seen so far. AI has been involved within these ad platforms for such a long time. People talk about the algorithms and how they work and machine learning processes that allow the campaigns to optimize themselves. So we've seen, this hasn't really been like a AI revolution. It's just a continuation of a process that's been going on for a very long time in my space, where the platforms themselves are getting smarter and smarter, and they are, I would say, freeing up us advertisers to focus on the things that really matter, the things that can lead to competitive advantage, ad creative, offers, improving customer lifetime value, like some of the things we've already mentioned.
Yeah, I feel the same way about my business, Ben. I mean, AI has been huge for me. It's been huge. And it's allowed me, my team, to produce content. We already produced a ton of content. It allows my team to produce so much more content. So more people call, and I can actually do my work, which I love to do, which is coaching people, coaching companies, doing trainings, coaching, keynotes, etc. So yeah, I love it. All right, quick speed round. You ready?
Go for it.
Book that's had a big impact on you.
$100 Million Offers.
I love that. I love that book. Alex Hormozi.
Yeah. I hesitated because a lot of the stuff in there I knew anyway, having worked in this space for such a long time. But I think that was the best book that sort of crystallized that thinking. So it's been really, I recommend that book more than any other for sure.
He's everything about what he does is great. And his whole concept and philosophy of how he puts so much content out there is he's great. He's great. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Okay, what's the one thing that you can do that makes everything else unnecessary or much easier?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. All right, last question. What's one thing everybody can do to be a more active in the ad space marketing world to grow their business?
An afternoon of research makes all the difference. You can see what everyone else is doing. And if you are advertising and you want to massively up your game, spend an afternoon taking a look at what your competitors are doing, and you will find ideas that you can then model from and replicate. And that might save you 3 years of testing.
Yeah, that's great advice. There's a great TED Talk. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called the, oh wow, my brain is like escaping me right now. No, The Power of Wonder. It's called The Power of Wonder by Jeff Perkins. Jeff Perkins. Anyway, I want to say Jeff Perkins. He's the founder of Priceline, and is brilliant. And one of the things he talks about that he does is he does something called info sponging, which is he spends 15 minutes a day. I want to make sure I get this right, so I'm just going to Google. Jeff Hoffman, Power of Wonder by Jeff Hoffman. And he spends 15 minutes. It's a great TED Talk. It's one of my all-time favorites. 15 minutes a day of something he calls info sponging, which is studying everything but his industry, everything outside of
okay.
So to keep on top of, I'll let you listen to it and other people listen to it. What could potentially affect his industry or ways to think about things differently. It's great. Think community. Well, Ben, first of all, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking time to share your insights on, the digital space, digital marketing, and what people need to do. Think community. Digital advertising agencies are something that I get asked about a lot. We talk about a lot on the show. Really important to kind of look at your business and think about where will paid media potentially help you grow your business. You don't necessarily have to have all the answers. That's where Ben comes in and his team, and you can reach out to him. Ben, tell everybody how to connect with you and who your ideal clients are.
Sure. So, firstly, you can just search my name, Ben Heath, in any social media platform, and I'll pop up with a ton of content being put out about this sort of stuff if you want to learn how to do it yourself. If you might be interested in us doing it for you or coaching you how to do this, then it's heathmedia.co.uk. And there you can book a free call, anything like that. Because of the nature of how our clients find us, which is very much through my content, I've got just over 1 million followers across channels. We get inbound inquiries from every type of business you can think of, and that's therefore what we've trained our teams to be able to do. So we work across the board from relatively small companies to massive companies and just about every vertical you could think of.
That's great. Think community. Thanks, Ben. Think community, really important that you zoom in and understand what a client is worth and the lifetime value of a client. So when you talk to Ben, you can reverse engineer and kind of understand what to invest to get the return and learn a little bit more about how it can work best for you. If you want to reach out to Ben, you can reach out to him. If you want to talk about any coaching, you can reach out to me at jondwoskin.com. Ben, this was great. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time and insights.
Fab, thanks for having me. Been great to talk.
Thanks, everybody.